right, good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us on the Social Zee Franchise Happy Hour. I'm Calvin. I will be your host as usual. Chan, why don't you kick us off? Give us your name, the brand that you represent, where you're located, your years in business, size of team, et cetera, et cetera. Just a quick 2-minute background on your business in New York.
Absolutely, Calvin, and thanks for allowing me to be here. This is quite a pleasure to kind of reconnect with you, knowing our backgrounds go back, and we have people in our past to look at. I am in Nashville, Tennessee, and have been here for about 3 years by way of Arkansas, Atlanta, and Mississippi. So I've kind of ventured through the Southeast and kind of landed in Nashville about 3 years ago, and was looking for my next opportunity, which turns out to be the franchise that I purchased last August, called P3 Cost Analyst. We are a cost reduction company that focuses on helping our clients get money back that they've been overcharged from their past vendors, and then renegotiating contracts. And we can discuss that ad nauseum, but I prefer not to. I got into this, like I say, a year ago, so I'm just 1 year into the franchise world, and I am a lone ranger. I own this franchise on my own. We don't hire employees. Basically, out of the 40 plus franchise owners that we now have across the United States, everyone flies solo. We do work as a team from a franchisee perspective and a franchisor perspective. But when you're out here, you're kind of on an island by yourself, right? So that's sort of the broad stroke view of who I am and what I'm currently doing.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Chan, and we're glad to have you on. Absolutely. So, Chan, before you jump into what you did before you bought a franchise and why you bought one of the things I forgot, so this is technically the franchise happy hour, and I was supposed to ask what everyone was drinking. So I'm going to jump into that real quick. So I am personally, I got given this today. It is a bottle of Old Forester, and I'm going to sip it very, very slowly because it's 115 proof. Chan, if you're drinking anything, tell us what you're drinking, and either way, let us know, what you did before your franchise and why you bought a franchise.
Absolutely. So I slid in sideways to my driveway at 457 because there was a traffic jam on I-65. I have my Yeti that I've had sweet tea in all day, and that's still what's in it. But I'll have a Moscow Mule soon, I promise you, and I'll slip it slowly as well. So at 53 years old, I have a little more life experience. I spent 23 years basically in the media industry. I've bounced in and out of it at times because of this entrepreneurial spirit that I had, that I didn't know what it really meant to have that spirit until I got into the business world after spending 23 years basically as a sports writer and photographer and on-air broadcaster. So I've done play-by-play for radio for years and years up until about 10 years ago. I retired from the media industry about 7 years ago, and I started basically trying to find my next thing. Back in the 2004 to 2009 range, I got out of the media industry and started a residential remodeling company, Davis Contracting. And I ran it for 5 years until the recession hit in 2008, and things just kind of went kaput. And then I went back to the media industry, spent another 10 years. And then after that, at 45 years old, I looked in the mirror and said, okay, you have 20 good years left of work. If you're looking at that 65 thing, right, that everybody kind of measures by. You have 20 years left. What are you going to do? Because you don't want to spend the rest of your life writing game stories until 2 o'clock in the morning. You've already missed out on a lot of things that your own children are doing to watch other children play ball, right? So you really don't want to miss those things, and you want to make a little more money than the media industry allows. So what's next? And so I left. I left the media industry without really knowing where I was going to go. I just knew it was going to eventually lead to me owning my own business. But I needed some education, and I wasn't going to go back to school. So the only way to get that education was to go into an industry and just start learning from their leaders. And so I did. I got recruited from a networking event, which is where I started this whole process. Was I'm going to go to a networking event, I'm going to meet people, and then it's going to guide me, right? People are going to get you there. And I got recruited into the merchant services industry, and I did credit card processing for about a year and a half. I rose very quickly. I understand what Hazel was talking about, where when people see things and you start elevating with them. But I didn't enjoy the industry, but I learned a ton, and I parlayed that into the insurance business for about a year and a half. I didn't enjoy that as well, but I made a good living at it. But it wasn't something that I was feeling passionately. And then I went into the furniture industry, and I sold furniture for a year. I was moved into management. I had my own store within a year and a half. And then I was a regional trainer for the whole company. Basically, I dealt with about 50 stores. So from there, I still knew this was not where I was supposed to be. But that whole process taught me something at every turn. And the people that I leaned in on taught me what I needed to know to then jump into actually owning a business. I started networking at age 45. At age 51, I got a phone call from someone that I had met those years ago and sat on a committee with through some networking events, calls me up and says, "Hey, I've got an opportunity for you with a franchise with P3 Cost Analyst." So there's really kind of a fine point paintbrush that puts the dots along the way that lets you know, as an entrepreneur and with the spirit of an entrepreneur, and you want to own your own business, it doesn't always materialize the way you think it's going to. But I think when your mindset is, this is the goal, then you just allow the journey to guide you down that path to your goal, right? So, and that's kind of what I did. And now I bought into P3 because P3 represents the three things that I value the most: people, planet, and profits. And it goes in that order. It's people first. Take care of the people, then take care of the planet, and the profits will follow. But you gotta be precise in the way that happens. So that's how I landed here. I don't think I really went to find P3. I just knew what I wanted, and P3 showed up in front of me and said, "Here I am, take me."
So, Chan, again, you're at a different part of life. It's kind of round 2 or maybe even round 3 for you, and you've had a lot of success in your past life. I know, from talking to you in past conversations, one of the big, things for you in making the decision to become a franchisee was, quality of life and your personal life and, personal decisions. Talk a little bit about, how your personal life has changed since you became a business owner and the positives and negatives around, being your own boss and running your own business.
Yeah, and that's a really good way to phrase the question because there are positives and negatives. There's freedoms and there's also restrictions. The same things sometimes that tie you down from a corporate America perspective, which is generally time, are sometimes the same things that do in the entrepreneurial world as a business owner. But I think the biggest plus on this is the freedom that when my children have something going on or my spouse has something going on, that there's some have-tos on that side, then I'm able to step in and lean in from a company owner perspective that says, I don't have to be here at that particular moment. I can reschedule that meeting. I can listen to this presentation at any point in time. Where when I'm in corporate America, when I was my last job with the furniture company, I would be gone for 4 or 5 days at a time. There was no way to step in. So there are those freedoms that happen, and that's probably the pros. That's one of the reasons I think most people want to become a business owner or an entrepreneurial spirit type person, is because of those flexibilities that it allows you in your schedule. But then there's days like today where I know I've got a 5 o'clock meeting with you, and I'm sliding in the driveway after 6 meetings today. Now, those are the have-tos, but I do those and I bunch them so that next Monday and Tuesday, my daughter's playing in the state championship golf match for the state of Tennessee in high school, and I get to take those 2 days off and go and watch and walk the fairway with her. You know, those are the want tos that you get to do when you own your own business. Now, there has to be a financial gain on the backside of that to be able to afford to do those things. So there's an investment in time, and sometimes it eats away at some of the fun things that you want to do. But you prioritize those, and you're able to prioritize those a little bit better when you own your own business or you run the company, because you make all the decisions, and there's nobody that says, hey, you have to be here at this time or you're not going to have your job anymore. And that unfortunately happens in corporate America, where it's business first, family second. I think in this world it's family first and then business second. And I think that's the hierarchy that it needs to be in. It's just hard to find that balance in corporate America.
Absolutely. You mentioned a number of times, the value add to your family, Chan. What's been their feedback and their perspective on it as you've made this change? As you mentioned earlier, there's plenty of times where you were missing events and gone till early morning, covering different sporting outings and things like that. How have they responded to this life change for you?
I don't know that there was so much of a verbal response as there was a connectivity response. There was a closeness that happened because there was more time available, and I wasn't gone for 4 or 5 days at a time with traveling around visiting 4 or 5 stores, or going and staying in one store for 3 or 4 days trying to clean up a mess there. So I think there was just a closer bond that was being able to be formed from a family perspective. And as that happens, it fills your bucket. And I talk about this in some of the teachings that I do. You have to have your bucket full, your personal bucket. If you go bankrupt, then you can't spend on others. So you have to have this bucket that you keep your things in, you're the things that matter to you. And those are the things that matter to me, is being able to participate in those family events and go on trips and take vacations and not have to plan it around somebody else's schedule. They can my wife can say, hey, we're going to go at this time. And I say, great, let's go at that time. I don't have to ask off, right? So there was a closeness and there was a connectivity that happened that I don't even know that the kids necessarily saw it happen, because it's a really gradual process that happens, right? It's not just an immediate impact, but I think that's probably the biggest receipt from this is the closeness and the bond that helped form within the family structure.
Chan, as a business owner, do you find yourself, when you have that time and you're able to take these trips and go see your daughter when she's running in the state meeting? Congratulations on that, by the way. But do you find yourself getting distracted with work, or are you able to disconnect and really focus and enjoy that time? Or, because you now know that no one else is covering those bases for you, is that always in the back of your mind?
Yes and no. It is always in the back of your mind. There's always a pressure from owning your own business. And sometimes it's a greater pressure than it is when you work corporate America. In corporate America, when I walked out the door, put the key in it, and put the deadbolt in, I was done for the day. There was no more thinking about it until I was on my way back the next day. You don't carry that weight with you. In the entrepreneurial world, you carry that weight with you. You may not show it, you may not express it, but you feel it. And it's always there because you don't have anyone to play backup. There's not a backup quarterback on our team, right? And you go down, the team doesn't play. But I'm in a position in my life at this age to where I could take that chance. Financially, I didn't have to be in a hurry to feed my family with this particular business or with whatever I decided to do. It wasn't about the money. It was about finding my passion and living it again. I lived it for 20 plus years in the media industry. I packaged my 2 passions, writing and sports. And I was able to live through that and be really content with what I was doing. And now I'm packaging my passion again, which is helping people and taking money away from big companies that basically rob their clients, and we're able to go uncover the thievery. I call myself Robin Hood all the time, that I take from the wealthy and give it back to the poor. The wealthier companies like the electric provider that you buy your electricity from. They bill you and you look at the bill and you say, hey, it fits in the budget. It looks like last year's bill. And if we don't pay it in 2 weeks, we get our electricity turned off, and it's $28,000. That's our electric bill this month, right? For a large manufacturing company, that's even low, right? But you think about a $28,000 bill that you got in, and there was one mistake on it where they miskeyed something, or they charged a tariff that wasn't supposed to be on there, but somehow electronically it got in there. Well, we're able to go line by line on those bills and find those mistakes and find those overcharges, and then we reach out to the vendor and say, hey, let's get some money back. And now that we know there was a mistake, there's probably going to be more, so we're going to take even a deeper dive. And then we're going to renegotiate this contract moving forward, because we see some things on here that really shouldn't be on here. So let's reduce this, let's trim the fat here and here. And that gives me a lot of joy, because we're helping. If you look at it from a bigger picture, what's the first thing that gets cut from a company when they have financial trouble? People. So what we want to do is we want to go back and find that money in other places, so that John can keep his job, so his wife doesn't have to work too, so that their kids can play soccer, right? It affects people. It's not about the big companies, and it's not about this manufacturing company that if their electric bill is $28,000 a month, they're probably making $1.8 million a year profit, right? I'm not really worried about that company. I'm worried about the people inside that company. So if I can save someone's job by finding money somewhere else so that they don't have to cut John's labor expense, that's the golden nugget. That's where the people come in.
Congratulations, because it sounds like you have found a sort of a second calling, where you obviously had a great career and doing something that you love, and now it's something with another purpose that sounds like it's motivating you every day. So congratulations on that. You talked about the positives with being able to re-engage and reconnect with the family. What are the things that you're now, because you are an entrepreneur and there is no backup, what are the things that that you're having to sacrifice? What are some of the cons? What are the things you don't have time for now because you are building a business?
So when I first started, I was playing golf pretty regularly. And that was one of the things, in addition to a little bit of a back injury that I had, it kind of took me away, but it had dwindled from playing 3 or 4 times a week. I would take potential clients out. I was taking networking partners out. It was sort of business related, but I was also playing for a lot of pleasure too, because I enjoy playing golf.
Ken, I think our first conversation about when you were first getting going, you were in a country club on the golf course, or I just got off the golf course, and you were in Brentwood. I can't remember where you were, but I think you were in a country club, dining room when we had our first conversation. Yeah.
We were. It's here in Franklin, but yeah, but that's where I have a home office, right? My home can be anywhere. That's one of the pluses, one of the benefits. I can go play 9 holes and then come into the area there where it's fairly quiet, set my computer up, pop on Wi-Fi, bam, we're in a meeting. That has been one of the things, though, are those fun things. Even in your intro or in your explanation, it's family and friends and fun and
family, friends, fun. Yeah. Like one of those is going to go away.
One of those, it doesn't necessarily go away completely, but one of them sacrifices more than the other. And because I'm family focused, and because I want to be there for every time my daughter tees it up, or every time our son had a baseball game, I want to be there. I don't want to hear later that, oh, somebody got a hole-in-one today, or oh, somebody hit a grand slam today. I don't want to hear that. I want to see that. And you have one shot. Yeah, you get one chance in life for some things. We have one child left in high school, and when she goes off to college, those things really dissipate very quickly. And so embracing those moments when you have the opportunity to embrace those moments is vitally important. I feel for those younger people that have parents who work 70 hours a week and are never involved, because I see the impact that it has on those who are involved. So that's it had to come down to, it's not going to be family. I don't really have a big friend base because my family are my friends. So that really didn't have to sacrifice. It had to come on the fun end. And the only thing I did for fun, other than weekend activities, excursions, and what have you, it was my weekly golf outings. And I have not played golf now in almost 3 months.
Wow.
Sort of, my back injury prevented me over the last 2 months, but even before that, it had gone to once a week. I mean, it was almost, I had to make it a point then to go play golf once a week instead of, oh, let's go spend the day at the golf course. So it was the fun part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, good.
And I'm sure that's pretty common.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's always, for me, and I was never into golf, but, certainly, like doing, numerous fitness activities, and that was always a big part of my life. But now it's, as a business owner, and, there's always one of the, 4 or 5 brands that I'm involved with that needs something. And so where I used to be able to focus at a gym or go play tennis or basketball, it's always in the back of my mind, as you said earlier, that, something is not getting done right now, and I'm really the only one that can do it. So I need to stop stop this fun activity and go do something else. And so it's part of it, but as you said, the benefits and the reconnection and the things that you've been able to do with your family, that's an amazing story. And I'm sure that they appreciate that, and they appreciate, I think they're probably okay with you not being able to play golf as much, right?
My wife, definitely, yeah.
Yeah.
We did play pickleball the other night for the first time.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm officially an AARP member now because of pickleball.
That's good, Chan. That's good. So keep it moving here. Last topic of conversation, just real quick, Chan. Obviously, you're wrapping up your first year in business, still driving, pushing forward. What are you doing over the next 90 days to have a good, end of 2021 and making sure you're set up for success in 2022?
The nature of our business deals with CFOs and controllers. That's our target market. If you boil it down to a sales cycle, we need to talk to the CFO and the controller. The last quarter of a year and the first quarter of a year are always difficult to get time carved out with those particular individuals. So it changes from reaching out. That's a second quarter, third quarter activity that I put together. Is I reach out through emails and marketing materials to the CFOs that I've identified before I've ever spoken to them. The cold approach. But all I'm doing is just planting some seeds along the way. The first quarter and the last quarter of every year is more spent in the networking arena and catching up with old colleagues, catching up with my network, scheduling my own networking events, doing these types of things with podcasts. This is probably my 8th or 9th one in the last 4 weeks. And it's something that the more you do it, the more you enjoy it, and the better connections you make with people. And that's what really, that's my fourth quarter goal, is to continue to build my network. And I have a pipeline of business that I'm still working. So I'll continue to drill down into that pipeline until I can either find some success and get a harvest, or I realize that pipeline doesn't need to be as full. And I'll whittle that down over the next 3 months to make sure that I start Q1 with a really nice, solid piece of that pipeline in place to move through Q1 then. And then I'll start Q1 the same way. I'll start ramping up some on the cold end, but then I'll really dig down into those few and continue to build network, continue to do my outreach from a face-to-face level.
That's great. Thanks for sharing that, Chan. We've on this podcast, and also just me personally, I speak to quite a few P3 franchisees pretty often, and it sounds like you've got a good system going on where a lot of guys are, stressing and figuring out where that next lead and the next opportunity is going to come from. It's good to hear that you've got a good system going, and it sounds like you really understand your demographic and your target market, knowing that, hey, these decision makers probably aren't out building new relationships right now because they're so busy with work. So you're going to focus on those ones that you currently have, and then this is your on a sales cycle. I always talk about hunting and farming. Maybe this is some of the farming that you're doing, and you're going to go back to hunting. Whenever they slow down a little bit. So
yeah, you don't hunt turkey when it's deer season. Right. So, and right now the CFOs are really their brains are on overload as it is, and as in any business, you're trying to attract business. I don't care if you're selling donuts or cost reduction. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You're trying to attract business in, but there are certain places that you're not going to sell donuts. You're not going to a diabetic convention and selling donuts. It's the wrong place, right? So you have to be aware of where your target market is and what they're going through on their daily schedule, on their daily basis, and then you have to meet them in the middle. But the middle is not right now, and you have to be aware of that. And if you're not aware of it, you can actually hurt your business. You can develop a reputation that will precede you. So I think the more aware we are of who our target is, meeting them in their space, breaking through that noise with the sound they need to hear when it's appropriate for them to hear it. Because I don't want to rupture a relationship before I can ever get it started.
Well, Chan, thanks so much for taking some time and to visit with us, and we appreciate you sharing your insight and your very, very valuable knowledge. You can tell this was probably your 7th or 8th podcast because you did a great job. So we appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Calvin. This was an honor and a privilege.